On page 102, you'll see a picture of Slow-Mo Man here. This is going to be for your pre-emergent and emergent group. This visual shows the Slow-Mo Man, that activity children learn to do. For instance, the word is cat, cat, where they slowly say the word before they learn how to segment the word. And it's a nice little visual for the children to identify what they need to do in the lesson. You can just point to the Slow-Mo Man after a while and they know to say the word slowly. On page 103, these are the visual steps that you have for your emergent writing group. These are the 4 steps that the students learn in order to independently write a sentence. I put 2 copies of those 4 steps because you could actually put this in each child's writing folder and then highlight each one of these boxes as they independently show that they can do this part of the 4 steps. So if they can automatically, after they write a word, go to the star, put their pencil on it, then you would highlight that box showing you know how to do that. You now are responsible. And then you're slowly releasing all 4 steps so that they independently can write a sentence on their own. I also recommend that you take these boxes and enlarge them to make a whole group chart for your kids to look at as you're teaching these lessons as well. Pages 104, 105, these are the steps to write information on both pages. But this information on page 104 is when the details are categorized. They don't have to be in a specific order. On page 105, this is when you have to sequence the details. They have to be in a specific order. These are the steps for writing information for both types of details. These steps would be used at the emergent level group when the children are writing information, and also at the beginner level group. Emergent level group, they're not having to learn these steps. You're just using these steps as they write the information. Beginner level, you actually would post these steps so that they learn the steps now, that they're only focusing on the actual organization and thinking of ideas and writing their own pieces of information. Page 106 has the steps to write a story. This would be for your emergent and your beginner level groups. Emergent, these are the steps that you would walk through where the children and you are going to write the same story. You are not showing the children these steps. You would just use this as your own teacher reference to follow along. But once they hit the beginner level, then you would show these steps, showing them now they have to learn the steps on their own so that they can write their own stories at the beginner level. So this is what the children are going to be following as they learn to write their own stories. On page 107, this is just an extra card that I made for you as a teacher to use, and this basically is pointing how when you sequence actions in a story, this is exactly what children need to learn how to do. They need to ask, once they have an action in a story, for example, let's say up here, they had a bear was in a story, and the bear climbed up a tree. So now we know the bear climbed up a tree. When you have an action in a story, you need to now sequence to the next action. These are the specific steps you go through when you do that. First thing you do is you ask this sequencing question. You go, what happened next? Then you need to choose the word after or while. So what happened next after, and then you have that previous action, the bear climbed up the tree. What happened next after the bear climbed up the tree? If the students can't come up with an idea, then you choose one of the emotion cards. The emotion card will give them an idea of what happened next, because an emotion is what you feel when something happens. So if he suddenly was mad, then something was up in that tree that made him mad. So now that'll help you come up with your idea. And once you come up with your idea, maybe there was a hornet's nest and a bee stung him. You have a bee stung him up in the hornet's nest. Well, how are we going to write that down? Are we going to say that it was an action, like maybe a bee stung him on the nose? Or are we going to have him say something? Or are we going to have him think something? How are we going to write that down? And finally, we'll go back and we'll identify the most important nouns in the sentence. What needs to be described in this sentence? So maybe we had a bee, we decided it was going to be an action, a hornet, popped out of a nest and stung him, ouch, there he is, on the nose. So who was doing the action? The hornet. So a hornet popped out of the nest and stung him on the nose. Do we want to go back and add a 5 cents or an emotion word? What in this sentence would be the most important thing to add? Oh, let's see. How about we describe the hornet? A wild and angry hornet. So we're going to describe how the emotion of the hornet. So now we go. A wild and angry hornet popped out of a nest and stung the bear on his nose. So these are your steps for the action in a story. On page 108 through 110 are the directions for the emergent writing box. These boxes are so important to that emergent writing group because they are going to specifically, with direct instruction steps, show children how to independently write a sentence. So I have directions on 108 and 110 for you to refer to as you are teaching this small group. On page 111 is the beginning of a scripted lesson for the emergent writing group using these 4 boxes. These pages go from 111 to 123. As we flip through these pages, what you'll see is that an actual scripted lesson of what the teacher and student is saying and pictures for you to see what would be happening in that part of the lesson. So as we flip through page 112 and 113, we are still on that emergent writing lesson. 114, 115, 116, 117. I want you to notice on page 117, you'll start to see whenever there's errors, like children need to snuggle letters, they need to point one to one, they need to space, all those different activities that you would be teaching children are embedded in this lesson to help children when they make mistakes or errors. Again, here's whenever they're making any errors, this is showing you what you would do in this scripted lesson. And finally, if you go on page 124, on page 124 through 127 is a scripted lesson at the beginner writing group. So here you would see what the students and teacher would be saying as they walk through. At this level, this is when the students are writing their own story or own information. So as they're writing, the teacher is walking through, helping them form their ideas and using those direct instruction steps. What direct instruction steps are we using? Remember, on page 104, 105, and 106 are the direct instruction steps that you're using at the beginner level group to teach children how to write information or stories. Now on 124, 125, 126, and 127, you'll actually see a scripted lesson, and you can review that to get an idea of how that lesson works. These are the tools for the scripted lesson. Remember, go to the next video so that you can see how I've organized these tools into folders so that you can easily find them and access those tools whenever you're teaching any of the pre-emergent, emergent, or beginner level writing groups.